it's better the recording. Everything's been That's good. And where will we find out? Yeah.
Hello. Welcome all 6, 7 of you. Thank you for coming. This is going to be a very interactive session, so we're going to start out by saying relatively little, but then we're going to hopefully ask, you're going to have questions or arguments. Essentially, the session is about anyone wanting to sell anything to the book world. Now, this is a very big subject. It's almost impossible to know where to start and where to stop. But just so that we can perhaps be a little more clear about the audience, can you very quickly tell us how many of you are authors? Most of you are authors. How many work with publishing companies? No, you're an author, so you don't work with publishing. Film and television or visual effects? Why? Have I left anyone out? You two in the back there, what do you do?
Me. I work for Southwest University.
Okay.
I work for the Creative Business Convention in Cologne.
Okay. All right. And we have someone from the insurance industry too. Okay. We're in a time of extraordinary change. Publishing is not the only industry changing, but in the last few years, publishing has changed more than in any other period since the late 1400s, when, in England anyway, when Caxton started using a printing press. Now, this change has come about not because of production systems, but because of delivery systems. The really big word in the last decade, the last 10 years, has been the word convergence. You can effectively get access to all the information you want on the same device. And it's become more and more true, literally in the last year. Home televisions are now computer screens. The iPad, which I love, is at the moment, I think, the most flexible portable device, but BlackBerry are going to bring out one, I think, next month. I have a BlackBerry and I have an iPad, so I'm kind of foot in both camps. Wi-Fi and wireless LAN have become, available everywhere. In fact, on the plane, the Lufthansa plane coming to England, there was a big article about the fact that on long-distance flights you can now get Wi-Fi, or you can get access to the internet on long-haul flights, and I'm sure soon on short-haul flights too. I think we're in a time of democratizing access to everything, including consumers, so that creative people are no longer as dependent on, in the film industry, on producers, or in the publishing industry on publishers, in order to get their books to people. However, publishers are dependent upon distributors for printed books. Digitally, of course, you've got Apple, you've got Google, you've got Amazon, and all of a sudden, you don't need a publisher. You don't need a producer. You can shoot your film, you can make a book. There are platforms available that are virtually free to enable you to do the formatting. But you have a problem. How do you tell people out there about your book? That is actually what it's come down to. So the search engine which was so essential, made Google as dominant, still remains the holy grail. If you can find a way of telling people or enabling them to find your book, then you will succeed, even if the book isn't very good. If the book is wonderful, but you can't tell people it's there, it won't succeed. So why sell to a publisher if you don't really need to any longer? Well, one of the obvious reasons is that authors often need advances from publishers in order to pay their bills and eat while they write their books. As a result of the recession that is fairly worldwide at the moment, certainly in the West, publishers have less money available than they used to. I think the reason you really need publishers is because they will probably sell more books than you will sell yourself. There are exceptions, and we say in English, I don't know, in other languages, exceptions prove the rule. But I think we're moving from a period where the phrase content is king, in fact there's a session here later about that, and this was like magic. You kept hearing it. I've heard it over and over again in the last 10 years. Content is king. And it appealed to me. There was something that made me feel really good about it. What creative people do is important. They provide the content. We must value creativity. But actually, I no longer think content is king. I think the change that has happened, which is largely technologically led, has meant that distribution is king. In the UK, we've lost many bookshops. The big book-selling chains, there were 3. We've lost Borders. Borders became bankrupt, basically. So we have Waterstones, we have Smiths, that's it. But we do have supermarkets. The supermarkets actually have no interest at all in content. Supermarkets are just convenience places to buy things cheaply. So we need them. Publishers need them. And unless you can get your book into a supermarket in England these days, you're probably not going to get very good sales. So I think we've moved from content being king to distribution being king. We've moved from gatekeepers who prevented writers from getting their books to the public unless they went to publishers, to a system where you don't need the publishers. But I believe that publishers are actually going to be right up front in making changes to the way they operate. So there were I think someone told me there were 57 workshops or panels or speakers in these 3 days talking about the new digitization, how to get your material out. Most of the people who are doing it today, most of these small independent people will not survive. Some will grow. Amazon will be there forever. And you may think Amazon is a good thing, you may think it's not such a good thing, depending on where you're looking at it from. But I think that traditional publishers, if they change, will actually still be probably the best way for an individual book to reach the largest possible audience. Whether that is always true, I don't know, but I think it is a very good reason why, if you can sell to a mainstream publisher, you should. Now, there are many authors who can't sell their books to publishers. Their publishers reject them, and there can be lots of different reasons for this. The book may not be good enough. Sadly, most books are not. At my agency, we see between 8,000 and 9,000 submissions every year, and I would say 85 to 90% are not good enough to be published. Which is, I think, quite a modest number. I think actually the truth is probably only 1% really should be published. So a lot of people write books, and therefore they believe somehow they have the right to have the book published. Of course they have the right to have the book published, but they don't have the right to assume someone's going to pay them a lot of money for it. They may not know how to get the book to the right publishers or the right agents, which is why events like this can be useful. And it really then comes down to a question of knowing what the market is. If you've written a book for which there is no identifiable market, you could be a genius who's creating a new market, because they often say that you need to sell the public something that they don't know they want. But the reality is most publishers are very conservative. They want to publish what they have proved they can sell. So you need also to approach the right publisher. I'd like to now ask Gesine, who is an extremely experienced rights seller, working for a very distinguished Swiss publisher. A publisher I think of as being kind of old-fashioned. I mean, I would love to sell them more books than we do, because they're fantastic. But they have this sort of aura of being one of the great old-fashioned publishing houses. How are you dealing with the brave new world which we're coming into?
Well, first of all, maybe I have to explain a little bit who we are. Diogenes or Diogenes is a Swiss publishing house, still privately owned, mid-size, one of the few ones that are still in private family hands, and which has proven to be quite successful with, as you say, Julian, sort of a conservative approach to literature, which means literature should be well-told stories which are also entertaining, which in the German language sometimes is a little bit provocative, but this is our program, and our publisher has really developed a corporate concept, and we've been quite successful in this territory. A traditional publishing house means that we publish authors. We publish books, but we try to find people, maybe with the first book, the debut, but then in future, hopefully, to publish many more. So we try to establish really the whole work of an author, rather than publishing an occasional book which is offered to us for an occasional topic. So we are really interested in investing, if you want to say it like that, in the future of our authors. And for that reason, it is very important to us to find people who fit in the line of our publishing concept. And when Julian mentioned that it is for authors very important, if they want to approach a publisher or an agent to publish their books, they really should be aware of to whom they offer this. They should really check out what is the profile of a publishing house, what is their feeling for literature, in what fields are they operating. I think this is one of the most basic things you should attend to in the beginning.
Could I just say, and you can go down one step further in your research, having discovered that your book is appropriate to a particular publisher, you can ring them and say, what's the name of the editor? Who is the editor of that book?
No.
No, I would definitely recommend that you do. I'm not saying you should talk to the editor, but you can find out the name of the editor, because it's no good sending a book to the wrong editor.
Well, the problem is we never do this, Julian. We never give out the names of our editors. If you want to submit a manuscript to our publishing house, you just have to send it to the editing department. But in our house, you can be sure that it will be read, and it is really on purpose, because some authors can get very pushy, and then they call every day and every hour, and that can be a little bit.
But you know, you have to look at the right side of that. An author who calls every day, you just tell them you never publish them, so you save yourself a lot of problems. If they let you buy their book and then they start calling every day, then you have a bigger problem.
That's true. Well, anyway, it works a little bit differently. Also here at the book fair, I mean, I don't know whether you authors go around here on the book fair, talk to publishers at their stands and try to offer their manuscripts. Do you do that? No? Pardon? Yeah, that's better. It's better anyway. And we don't accept manuscripts here on the book fair, because it's really getting too chaotic, and in the end you end up with a